My people, we are coming towards the end of our Basic Nigerian History series, and I hope it has been a fun and enlightening ride for you. A lot of you have been telling us to do more videos, talk about culture, dive deeper into a particular area of history, or tell the history of other countries. You have been requesting and we have been listening, whilst looking for ways to achieve this. And finally, I believe we have found one, but we can't do it without your help. We are working with creators from all over Africa and the diaspora to launch our very own edutainment streaming platform. On this platform, you will be able to watch courses on the history and politics of various African nations, as well as take a deep dive into the culture of different ethnic groups and much more. You will be able to get access to all of this content for a small monthly subscription fee. This will help us scale and keep making the fantastic content that you love. It will also allow edutainers from all over Africa to become full entrepreneurs and make a living from the wonderful work of helping to spread knowledge. To kick things off and get you guys acquainted with the platform, we will be releasing the remaining episodes of Basic Nigerian History 1 week early on the platform. And you can watch it over there for free. All you have to do is head over there, click to watch, and if you sign up now, you get the first 30 days for free. We will still be sharing stuff over here on our YouTube channel, but the majority of our content will be on our new platform. And for every paid subscription we get, we are able to gift a subscription to someone who needs it but can't afford it, like a student from a less affluent background. It is time we took charge of our own narrative and tell it the way it deserves to be told. I look forward to seeing you over there. Dr. Catel out. Now, last episode, we discussed how the young General Muhammadu Buhari took over Nigeria in an effort to force Nigerians into behaving better, and how it ultimately failed. This episode, we're going to talk about the beginning of Babangida's reign and how Nigeria had to implement a structural adjustment program to pay off debts to the European countries. Let's begin. In August of 1985, the third-ranking member of the Supreme Military Council, Ibrahim Babangida, peacefully overthrew Buhari and the Supreme Military Council in a palace coup. This was now coup number 6. Nigeria really just had coups coming out of their ears at this point. He cited Buhari's inability to bring the economy under control or secure a rescheduling of Nigeria's debts, his refusal to accept advice from other military officers, and failure to set a clear plan back to democratic rule. Let's see if they did any better, shall we? Even though it was still military rule, Babangida demonstrated his intent to encourage public participation in decision-making by opening a national debate on proposed economic reform and recovery measures. He wanted to talk about SAP, the Structural Adjustment Program, and whether to accept it or not. He positioned himself as a man of the people and embraced the harshest critics of Buhari by bringing them into his government, including Olikoye Ransom Kuti, the elder brother of Fela. The public response for him at this point was more or less positive. Babangida promised to return the country to civilian rule by 1990. It was all BS, of course. He embarked on a complicated democratic transition that appeared to always be moving forward, no matter how slowly, but we will soon discover that he just didn't want to let go of power. Anyways, back to the beginning of his reign. He opened an investigation into the human rights abuses perpetrated by Buhari's government. He reopened the closed media companies and released the journalists and encouraged them to print and tell both sides of the story. He called himself president instead of head of state. So a quick reminder about this SAP thing I mentioned earlier, otherwise known as the Structural Adjustment Program. Basically, it was a method of paying off debts that was introduced by the International Monetary Fund to many nations in the Southern Hemisphere in order to maintain the status quo. They said it was going to help, but in actuality, it crippled the GDP of the southern nations and forced many people into poverty. This then meant the Western world could now keep access to the cheap labor in the global south. And as I mentioned in a previous episode, when a leader, aka Thomas Sankara, did speak up against this so-called debt and said, let's just not pay it, he was assassinated in a French-backed coup. Thing is, the West and global North love debt. It's an amazing way for them to keep making money. Many poor countries have already paid off their debts completely, some of them paying it 2 or 3 times over, but because of the miracle of compound interest, they are still paying it till this day. And yet, people still don't think that interest is a bad thing. Anyways, back to the topic. Eventually, the people of Nigeria chose to reject the International Monetary Fund's SAP program and instead instituted their own version of SAP. This kind of allowed Nigeria to avoid looking like a beggar nation but still get the rescheduling of the debts that they wanted. The bulk of the repayments were pushed back until 1991. The monitoring of the SAP took place by the World Bank so that there was no IMF involvement. This wasn't a win for Nigeria though. The World Bank was still controlled largely by rich countries in the global north. Millions of people will still be forced into poverty and the European countries still won. Now, let's talk about the effects of this SAP on Nigeria. There were some positive impacts. For example, the annual debt service reduced from 38.7% to 30% in 1988. The devaluation of Naira meant there was a decrease in imports, which was a little good for agriculture and raw material production. It began to grow by 5.3% increase annually. This growth allowed rural areas to gain a little bit of wealth to them. However, the program was by and large devastating on the average Nigerian. The currency devaluation caused inflation and made buying anything difficult. People couldn't afford basic necessities. Unemployment rose. More expensive external imports meant there were less finished goods and less profits, which meant less wages and less staff. There was an increase in fuel price. SAP calls for removing of government subsidiaries, which had been keeping oil prices low for Nigerians. This put even more of a strain on people's already low budgets. I mean, fuel is quite important in Nigeria. We use it for generators, we use it for everything. SAP also called for a reduction in government spending, which meant social services and utilities continued their downward trend in quality. For example, electricity provision got worse. NEPA, the Nigerian Electric Power Authority, became known as Never Expect Power, Always NEPA. Very clever. You can always trust my people to come up with clever quips because that's the reality of what they were experiencing. The quality of education and healthcare got worse and prices rose. More and more people pulled their children out of school, and finally almost all companies had to be privatized, including those that had provided public services. This meant rules and regulations of indigenization was relaxed so foreign companies could now start owning them. Foreign companies didn't want anything to do with Nigeria though, so the plan ultimately failed. Instead of attracting them, some were even leaving Nigeria. Babangida did try to help by making various organizations to ease people's pain. For example, he created a People's Bank to help poor people get loans. There was a Better Life program to improve the life of rural women. And finally, the National Directorate of Employment to help people get jobs in non-public sector. All these initiatives helped in the beginning, but like everything else in Nigeria, quickly became an avenue for corruption. Other Nigerians with skills had finally had enough. They left Nigeria to find better paying jobs overseas. Doctors, engineers, lawyers, businessmen left for the UK, USA, and Saudi. This was also good for their kids, as it meant their kids could also gain a better education. This was the period of the huge brain drain from Nigeria. This of course hurts the economy even more, as the lack of highly trained individuals made services like healthcare even worse. This brain drain didn't stop as well, because as you will see, the economy never truly gets better. Education and employment opportunities remain rubbish. In fact, by 2000, 50% of all Nigerian university graduates lived outside of the country. By 1993, 21,000 Nigerian doctors were practicing in the US alone. In the year 2000, the Nigerian population in the US was reported at 164,000, of which 54,000 had a university degree or higher. And in 2001, 88,000 Nigerian-born individuals resided in the UK and were overwhelmingly concentrated in and around London. Nigerians have contributed to fields of scientific research, medicine, business, and all manner of academic disciplines in European and American universities, but not in Nigerian universities though. Right, well, even if they have, not that many. Many have won prestigious awards. They've also made international contributions to business entrepreneurship, such as serving as CEOs and so on. So you know the talent is there. Unfortunately, the country isn't set up for talented individuals. The migration into these European countries is seen to be largely semi-permanent, with most Nigerians hoping one day to return back home and settle once the country has gotten its ass back together. But we all know that this is looking more and more unlikely at this rate. The Nigerian diaspora is also well known for sending a constant influx of foreign exchange back to Nigeria in the form of remittances to support family, friends back home. Statistics on that range from $1.3 billion to $4 billion. But even though remittances are now the second leading source of foreign exchange earnings for Nigeria after oil, they cannot be seen as an adequate replacement for the lack of professionals in the Nigerian economy. Anyways, I'll leave it there for now. Otherwise, this episode will go on and on. Sorry about my rants there. Join us next time when I continue to talk about Babangida's reign over Nigeria. Guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share it with your friends. The more comments and subscriptions we get, the more we can defeat the YouTube algorithm and the more Nigerians can know and learn a little bit about their history. Please help us spread the word. Catel loves you. Goodbye.